So I'm not used to being in front of the camera. I'm used to being behind the camera. I work with Melissa for Warrior Love Productions. Thank you so much for putting this on. This is the new DeFi, the new Decentralized film panel. I'm welcome Ivan. Do you want to explain what you do for everybody in the crowd?
Sure. I think I like to say I've done a little bit of everything in the space. I've worked in DeFi for a good amount of time, and we did start one of my companies there, Teller Finance. We did start playing a little bit with the financialization of NFTs. But prior to that, I actually started Multiplied with Ben out there taking pictures. So him and I have, we spent a long time doing PR marketing for a number of companies in the space. Over time, that business has been evolving. And I think we slowly started moving into the NFT space. We worked with a number of projects there within GameFi. We've worked with producers, musicians, and now we're making a slow incursion into the film and NFT industry as well. So there are some things we're working on producing, but everyone will see and hear a little bit more of that later this year.
And Cameron, what about you?
Any mic she gets, it just shuts off the second she gets the mic. It goes down. Hey, I'm Cameron. Nice to meet you all. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm working in the Web3 space now with film and NFTs.
Yes. So wait. Oh, you can hear me. So with that being said, Cameron, you have some pretty good commercial success with filmmaking in the Web2 space. So you have a movie on Netflix, you have a movie on Hulu, and what many people don't realize and why I wanted to start this panel was that probably filmmaking is the most expensive, the most collaborative, the most difficult, technical, but also the most gate-kept industry in any art that I know of. So can you
That and the opera.
Probably. Probably.
I don't know
much
which one's
about
harder
it.
to break into.
But can you, outside of the opera, can you explain a little bit about the current state of the film industry and IP distribution for you and your experience working with Netflix and Hulu?
Yeah, absolutely. So cool to be up here, by the way. This gentleman and I have connected recently, and it's just good to be sitting here. It's like serendipitous.
I had no idea he'd be here, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, we met on a Zoom meeting like everyone meets. So, I've made a few films. And, it's always a battle to get a movie made. It takes a lot of people, a lot of money. And then my experience, for the most part, and the experiences that I've noticed a lot of my colleagues and friends having is that after you go through the battle of getting the movie made, you're very lucky if you do well with it, right? Generally, a lot of the deals now, it's like, if you're going to get that Netflix deal, which is often coveted, many times nowadays, that's like, maybe 3x your budget, right? And that's like a win. They're like, hey, we'll give you, what did you make it for? We'll double it, and there you go. But we want the rights, and you're not going to have any participation in this ever again, And it didn't always used to be like that. And then that's like a great, that's like a good deal. Look, the theatrical thing can happen still. It's harder. When's the last time I make independent films? When's the last time an independent film really went to the box office and just knocked it out of the park? That used to happen.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Used to happen, but doesn't really happen much. Netflix has flooded the market with their debt financing, and then by doing so owned it in a certain way to where now the 3x deal is kind of the best you're going to get, but they want to own it forever, right? So you don't own it anymore as an artist. And then if you're not getting one of those two things, you're getting these secondary distributors who want to license your movie for 10 to 15 years, and they're going to write all of their expenses against it. And the accounting is terrible, and it's just not, it's not fun anymore. It's not fun. It's not fun to get ripped off. And I've been ripped off as a filmmaker. And the first movies I made, you get jabbed by the international distributors, or you get one of these domestic distributors that's, they don't really deliver on everything they said they were going to deliver on. You're like, ugh, I got to change that next time. I got to change that, And it just, it just feels as if, it's felt as if it's, there's not a lot of good opportunities for independent filmmakers to, find those lucrative deals anymore.
Yeah, it almost sounds as if you are dependent on so many different factors to even get your art seen by anyone, really, or by the masses, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, reaching the masses is a whole other combo because there's a lot of noise out there too nowadays, right? But, at least having the shot. I mean, ownership. I think for me, it really came down to ownership. It's like you're either licensing away your film for a really long time or you're not owning it anymore. And I didn't like either of those.
Yeah. So then how did you hear about Web3? What brought you to kind of start using Web3 as a strategy for filmmaking?
Yeah. The last movie that I made in Web 2 actually premiered here at South by Southwest before COVID, I think like 2018. Even that, like, it's on Hulu, and it was one of those deals where it's like, you have someone in the middle getting on Hulu for you, and it's annoying. And I didn't want to do that again. So I made this film called Flinch, which is my project that I'm working on in Web 3. And I decided I wanted to own the movie. Like, that was the first decision that I made, is I didn't want to lose ownership of it. I wanted to own it. And I didn't really even know what that looked like. I just knew that I didn't want to do one of these bad deals. I didn't want to give it away for 15 years and, like, beg for a report from somebody, And I've been in crypto for a long time. I was an early adopter and really into it. And when I learned, the moment I learned about Web3, there were two moments for me. One was first on Clubhouse, when we were all on Clubhouse during the pandemic. I'm sure we all met in a clubhouse at one point. And I remember hearing about, you were there.
Make a little jab when Clubhouse was cool.
Right, yeah.
It's the MySpace of talking now, really.
So there I remember hearing about it, and I was like, what the heck? But I didn't understand it until I heard this guy, Naval Ravikant, speak about it. And he speaks about it so eloquently, and that was my aha moment. I was like, whoa, I get this, and I want to do this.
That's awesome. So essentially right now you are funding a project, Flinch, your franchise, through NFTs. So it's from more of like a crowdfunding, tokenized way of people being able to contribute to your project. But in return, you get your film made through people buying these NFTs. Essentially, is that what that is in a nutshell?
Yeah, kind of. The only difference is that I made the movie already, right? So I made this film called Flinch, and when I made it, I was always like, I want this to be a 3-part crime thriller, right? It's a crime franchise. It stars Tom Segura, Academy Award nominee Kathy Moriarty, Stephen Bauer, Danny Zavato, like a wonderful cast. And it's a story of a hitman who lives with his mother, who falls in love with a girl who witnesses him commit a murder. And it's got a very 90s vibe to it, just like, good old crime thriller vibe. And it's just like made for a 3-part thing. And even when at the end, I always envisioned this thing. So I made the film, and I decided I was going to release it this way. So the idea for me is the community takes this movie. The movie is a utility for them. So it's a utility in 2 ways. One is the story, the characters, everything that's set up is like the pilot for the project, for the franchise. So the community can kind of rally around that, understand these characters, and build from there, one. And then two, the income from the film, 50% of it goes back to the community and its exploitation. And so it exists as a utility in 2-part, and then from there, the community works together to, first we get through a mint. When we complete the mint, we go and make part 2 and 3. And then hopefully from there, the community can really run with it. And it's their own IP that they can continue to iterate off of and build on it however they wish.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Really, really great. So Ivan, you've been in Web3 for a while now. What made you want to go into film NFTs and exploring that industry?
Well, ironically, I think one of the first jobs I had, I moved out to LA sometime after college, and I needed to make money. So I just worked as a production assistant. And yes, I was trying to be in film and work on a novel that's somehow still on the back burner somewhere. And so that was always, it was a passion that was in the back of my head. But, I think I have multiple directions of attention spans. So crypto kind of presented me to almost like this open palette of what can I work on. And when the NFT space really started blowing up, I think about, realistically 12 months ago, it was sort of like this golden moment of finally getting this message across that blockchain technology, or at least even just NFT technology itself, is here to create a new medium for artists to create, right? And naturally, my eyes immediately start drawing towards film, just based out of that like ongoing fashion. And I've always, I think, been very vividly aware of the gatekeeping within Hollywood, as you've said, the number of like pernicious issues, the almost like vulture-like behavior where investors and producers take most of the money in the film. We've seen this. There's constant strikes. I think there was a strike in October with crews in LA, and so it's like, within Hollywood. And the issue is, again, people don't get paid enough. Most people don't get any kind of royalties. And like you guys said earlier, there is a enormous amount of creativity and effort that goes into producing a film. And I don't think the way that equity is distributed right now reflects that at all.
Yeah, I'm actually curious, based off of what you said, like the creatives and the creativity, this is a question for both of you. How do you think the way the film industry is structured right now has affected the creativity of the films that we're seeing, or maybe the mainstream content that we're seeing?
Yeah, I got an opinion on this one.
Yeah, go for it.
It's the same formula, especially for movies. TV aside, I love movies. And it's, it's like a lot of superhero movies, and then every superhero is in the same formula for the superhero movie.
Watch out, Scorsese. You will you will get hate for that.
Well, it's about the money, right? Blockbusters make money at the end of the day. And so films nowadays, or at least these large blockbuster films, are not so much about the art. They're just a money producing machine. And obviously they entertain individuals. So I think, put it this way, to put it into context. I don't know if I interrupted you at all, but no. So to put, no, well, I it's good to always see parallelisms, right? So what happens in the film industry and the way it's structured right now, right? You have investors at the top, you have producers, and obviously you have the talent that's put around to build the film, right? The ones that are, let's say, at the top of that hierarchy are obviously the investors, right? So investors fund the film. Creatives are always in need of money. And there's only a handful of investors, right? Just as there's only a handful of rich people within the world. And so what you have is a structure in which they have most of the power, and they're very conservative about what they invest in, right? So usually you wind up with these models where an investor puts in the money, they will make 100% of the film of their investment back, and up to 115, 120 recoup. Once that's settled, they will usually get a split of the net profit beyond that recoup with the producer. And that split could be 70-30, swaying the investor's way, right? Which is still grossly enormous, right? They're taking most of the profit back. And as you were mentioning before, like now sometimes they're even buying the IP. So I've had to sell away my entire vision just to get to produce it, right? Where is the continuity for me now as a creative? I have no ownership left. And the truth is, that's no different than what's currently going on in our own financial system and why it's broken, right? It's still a system of plutocracy. It's a governance of the wealthy. So to me, having been in blockchain, working, let's say, in the decentralized finance industry and looking at the pervasive issues within there, they're no different than what's going on in Hollywood. This is just the average global model by which we financialize these things. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think that you wouldn't really know that unless you were in the industry. Like, Hollywood does a really great job at kind of veiling this whole facade of like, oh, we're here for the creatives, we want to help the creatives, but we're going to take and extract as much value.
I think it was,
as possible.
I think Steven Spielberg said it, someone said it at a can like years ago, that Hollywood is slowly trying to just make one movie. And, like you think back to the 90s, like I love movies from the 90s. And it was all original stuff. Like all the bangers from the 90s were these original stories that were amazing. 80s too, 70s too, but like the 80s, the blockbuster happened, and it's like slowly become, to where now it's not that level of originality and storytelling that we used to have.
Yeah.
By the way, the top 10 grossing films of all time, if I'm not wrong right now, are all Marvel movies, as well as the top paid actors in Hollywood. So if that gives anyone some context. But
Yeah, and so I guess where does the money filter, right? All the way to the top to one organization who probably I don't need to name, right? So they all own like the top 10 movies of all time grossing. So where does that money get filtered? It doesn't flow back to the people that are creating that or contributing to that or giving them the success. It's going right back to the top where they're going to produce the same cookie cutter movie over and over again. So I think, to your point, Cameron and Ivan, you guys are doing some work to make sure that, that doesn't happen. So Web3, you're seeing, is the disruptor to that. So let's talk about some projects. Like, obviously, we just talked about Flinch. Cameron, your project. What other projects are happening right now that are pretty, maybe pretty disruptive to the film industry that maybe should be highlighted or put on stage right now, if you guys can think of any?
Well, there's a couple cool projects that I've become aware of. I mean, I think the first one that I was really aware of was Julie Pacino had a project. She was able to raise like $1.5 million, I think, off of her mint to go make her first independent feature film, which is pretty amazing. She did it with NFTs. I mean, what Beam is doing, there's this platform called Beam. They're doing incredible stuff. They're providing an outlet for Web3 creators to make their films, show their films, distribute their films,
By the way, I was going to say Beam is right here on the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Test
Either of you guys
Beam.
wants to step up, feel free.
Yes, please
Yeah.
come up and you can talk about your project.
I'd love to.
Oh, come on up.
Impromptu invite. Let's go. Thank you, Cameron. Oh. Hi, guys. I love this discussion. And I think you guys really nailed the pain points in the existing infrastructure. And I think, so I always had a dream of becoming a filmmaker or just being a storyteller. I was a theater kid. And I wanted to tell real stories, like documentaries and whatnot, but I just couldn't envision a sustainable career path in that. And when I came to understand what we're doing at Beam, just fireworks go off, because you realize that your direct relationship with your audience can be built from inception of idea, and then the project can be built with them, and it's kind of a life cycle that can continue and evolve and grow with you as you evolve as an artist and promote your ability to create what you want to create with them, and actually hear what they really want, not just what the cycle tells them that they want.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was your name?
No worries. I'm Tess.
Tess.
I lead communities and growth and impact at Beam.
Okay, and can you describe Beam very quickly?
Yeah. Very quickly, Web3 toolbox for creators, focused on content security and distribution. But imagine the way that you hear an audience laugh at a moment in the theater. It's like that, but your audience can be anywhere in the world, and they can pay however they want to pay. If it's crypto, if it's just through their credit card, and you can kind of build a community and interact with them there.
I learned about Beam when we did a screening with Blockbuster DAO, hosted a screening for Flinch on their platform. No, it's okay. And a ton of people came and watched it together. And then they have this cool little chat bar where you can type while you're watching the movie if you want. You could stream it to your TV and watch it that way, but you could also type. And it was really cool to watch it like that, because it was like whispering in a movie theater. It was like whispering with your friends, but online, to where it's and it created a level of engagement that was incredibly exciting. I wasn't on my phone while watching the movie. I'm there, reading the comments of what people are saying moment to moment, and then responding to them. And that feature alone was so cool to me.
That's actually awesome. That's essentially market research. When the film and the
Absolutely,
cast
yeah.
come and they're behind a one-way mirror and they're watching people watch the movie. Essentially, you created that, but with Web3.
Unveiled, yeah.
Global focus study. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Our team is very decentralized. Our founder, Mihai, was here. He's based in London. A lot of our team is based in Barcelona. They come from, traditional media distribution background. And then we have team in Montreal, in Buenos Aires, and actually in Brazil. And then I'm in Los Angeles. So
Okay.
we make it work.
All right. So real quick, with one more minute, I mean, Ivan and Cameron, Tess, is there anything that you guys, like, how can people find you, talk to you more about this? Because this is a conversation we should have, like, we can have for hours. So how can people find you?
Well, how can you find me? Probably.
I've tagged you guys on Twitter.
Thanks, Ben.
I mean, you can go find me on Twitter, I guess.
Hashtag film NFT.
But if you want to find out more about me, you can go to multiply.io, and I think somewhere you'll find out who the owners are. And I'm always open. So yeah, I don't know. Look for me.
Flinch NFT. That's the best one on Twitter. Flinch NFT.
Perfect. Our website is beam, b2esm.xyz. And I'm Tess Fenn everywhere. So TESSFENN. Twitter, Instagram, all the things.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we have, I mean, if you guys are open to it, I would love to have a continuation because we have so much to cover, but would love to have a continuation on Twitter Spaces. Maybe we can do like in South by Southwest Part 2.
Or Beam.
Or
on-
Beam, I'm sorry.
Or on Beam.
Actually, Beam.
Or like Twitter Spaces, but visual.
Yes, okay, so then we can have that, and then it would be about the future of Web3 in film, or film in Web3. So we can talk more about the models and how we're disrupting the models. And Ivan has some great points to make about that. So,
Thank you for that plug.
of course, that's why I'm here. Well, thank you everybody for joining.